in our culture nowadays, with the amount of change that we have, our focus on quality of life, it's causing us to move into a different place of looking at relationships, long-term relationships, in a little bit more of a fluid way. I think that the concept of marriage has changed so much more in the last 20 years than it has in the previous 200 years.
So there's a common statistic that's thrown around that 50% of all marriages end in divorce. Now, with the way some people look at the ending of a marriage, they end up walking around feeling like they're a failure. Do we have to redefine what we consider a healthy relationship so that as couples move on, they don't look at themselves as failing?
Well, I think there's this distinction that you just made. A healthy relationship would not probably end in divorce. But the other side of that is that you want to have a healthy divorce, and we can reduce the ideas that we have about failure by having a healthy divorce. The thing that happens is we fall in love. It's also wonderful. It's also exciting. And we talk with everybody about it. The downside, when the stage comes when our vision, values, and beliefs don't match and we want to have a divorce, we seem to become acrimonious. Like we made a terrible mistake. This person is terrible. And that leads to the sense of failure, which is not really the case, because we don't have failure in our culture. We have failure because people say that that's the case. And I don't think that we need to be going there anymore. It's a stage of life. It's something that people pass through. And if they do all they possibly can to stay together, and then it's the next best thing for all concerned, it's certainly not a failure, and we need to redefine that.
What of the pressure that sits with society, where you're supposed to get married one time, there's one penguin for all of us? Is that a realistic scenario? You're saying no?
I don't think so anymore. I mean, I think with in our culture nowadays, with the amount of change that we have, our focus on quality of life, it's causing us to move into a different place of looking at relationships, long-term relationships, in a little bit more of a fluid way. I think that the concept of marriage has changed so much more in the last 20 years than it has in the previous 200 years, as far as what's going to work for us. I just think that we're getting called to look at it in a little bit of a different way, and not having it be a failure. I think there's a lot of people who find themselves in marriages where they haven't maybe failed each other, but they failed themselves, to a certain degree. They've lost who they are. And this process of separating will help them to find themselves again and either come back together in that couple or move on to with somebody else. But I think it's definitely something that we're moving towards, a more fluidity with relationships.
And sometimes you really need to have a breakdown to have a breakthrough. Mm-hmm. So even approaching divorce can move you in a direction of saying, oh, I don't want to go there. Mm-hmm. But even if you do get a divorce, then you've gone to another stage of life, and let's do it in a healthy way, without blame, without accusation, without shame. Let's just move on,
Right, and my perspective is to make sure that you then take the time to do the work to ensure that you bring self-love to yourself through the whole process. Mm-hmm. And make sure that you are really looking deep and learning from that relationship that didn't work, didn't succeed. Because then it's never a failure if we can learn and move on and move forward and grow.
This is a whole very challenging subject. In a bigger context, I know if we just look at success, we talk about success and failure. Anybody who's successful says failure is a process, a part of the process of success. Every failure is a learning experience. I've been married for 30 years, and I feel my wife is my soulmate, and I will stay with her till I die. And it's a very sweet feeling. It's a sweet knowing. And then I was married before, and I still love my ex-wife. She's a lovely person, but we weren't soulmates. Mm-hmm. It was in retrospect, I thought at the time it was a soulmate experience, but it was someone I wanted to share my life with. But we really weren't right for each other. And there was a knowing that, okay, this was a learning relationship. This was a growing up relationship. I kind of joke with my wife now and say, it's really good that I had that relationship to make all those mistakes so I didn't have to make it with you. So it's, We talk about failure. I think that, everything you're saying is so important that we always look at any shift in our life as a learning experience. But there is the feeling, we don't want to deny the feeling that most people, when they walk down to get married, feel like, I want this to last for a lifetime. And I don't discount that feeling. That's a very sweet feeling. I think that's the soulmate feeling, because when our heart is wide open, we're connecting with our soul. And our soul is eternal. You can look at a picture of you as a child, and everything is different. Your emotions are different, your thoughts are different, your appearance is different. But that's you. There's some part of all of us that's eternal. And when we open our heart wide, there's that feeling of you're mine forever, and I'm yours forever, and we're joined together. And then integrating that into our life is another story.
So what I'm hearing everybody say is that it's not about fault, it's about change, and it's about managing your expectations going in and keeping them managed the entire time of the relationship so that you're on the other side at some level of happiness for yourself and with your partner.